Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people that you think are your friends? Everything's going smoothly, you're hanging out, you're talking to each other all the time, and the next thing you know, things just start feeling a little bit off. You call, you text, it takes a while for them to call you back. You say you want to hang out and you just kind of get brushed off. You know, something's always more important. And then you run into these people when you're out and about doing your daily stuff, and the answers they give you, like when you ask a question, they're just kind of cold and calculated, and it doesn't seem like they really want to talk. And in that moment, you suddenly realize that you're no longer important. You're being pushed off to the wayside. I think that is a perfect analogy to exactly what is happening to us right now. I think we're being pushed off to the wayside. And I think there's a lot of other things that are taking priority and taking precedence over the people. And I think there's one thing in particular that's taking precedence over the people. And you know what I'm going to say? It's AI, it's technology. And because there is so much focus on AI and technology, people are left scratching their head, trying to figure out exactly what could be so important about AI that it takes priority over the people. What is so great about all this technology that these people that are developing it are willing to put everything else on the back burner as if it doesn't matter, push it off to the wayside, and focus all of their attention on this one thing. And it's kind of crazy because people aren't concerned as much now about where AI is going to lead us. It's not even about that. Now it's just about what is so important about it. Why is it such a priority right now at this very moment? And if you take an objective look at what they're doing with AI and how much they're scaling it, it's crazy because the numbers keep going up. The last time I looked into this, which wasn't that long ago, maybe a month or so ago, they were talking about investing $5.2 trillion into AI over the next 5 years. The latest reports I've heard is over $7 trillion. That is more money than the entire GDP of some developed countries. I mean, it's crazy. And the latest numbers I heard on the amount of data centers that are going to be installed by the time this is all said and done is over 12,000. And to put that into context, there are currently around 5,500 in the US alone. So over the next 5 years, they're going to more than double that. And all this stuff, it leaves people wondering, why are they doing this? And there are a lot of theories out there about why they might be doing this. I talked about 5 of those not too long ago on this channel. But I recently discovered something that paints this entire situation in a totally different light. And this all starts with a question. And the question is, have you looked at how these data centers are being laid out? Because if you look at the map and you look at the globe and you see where these data centers are being placed, they're kind of all over the place. And at first it kind of looks random. It looks like they might just be doing this because they're placing them in very strategic locations based off of climate and how likely they are to become a military target. But when you compare that globe and how they're being laid out on the globe to the human brain and the neural connections in the human brain, it starts to paint an entirely different picture on what is happening here. Because what you'll notice when you do this comparison is that the way data centers are being laid out on the globe is very similar to how the neural connections and the neural pathways are mapped in the human mind.
So when you're programming artificial intelligence, or when you're working with artificial intelligence, are they specifically trying to mimic the developmental process of a human brain?
In a lot of ways. There's some ways that are different. An analogy that's often used is like, we don't make a submarine swim like a fish, but we take the principles of how, of hydrodynamics and apply them to a submarine.
I've always wondered, as a layperson, do you try to achieve the same results as a human brain, but through different methods, or do you try to copy the way a human brain achieves results?
I mean, the essential elements of an AI neural net are really very, very similar to a human brain neural net. Yeah.
And what you'll also notice is that they're also being laid out in a way that mimics the global consciousness. Because when you think about the global consciousness, it exists in individual people, but these individual people are largely laid out in these large population centers. And what are they doing with data centers? They're clustering them. So what looks like a city full of millions of people on a map is very similar to how data centers look when they're clustered in an area or a state. And you can see how these networks and these pathways branch out and interconnect to all the other data centers and all the other clusters around the globe, creating this neural network and this global consciousness that is very similar to the neural network and global consciousness that exists in the real world. So that begs the question, is that exactly what they're doing? Are they trying to replicate the human brain and the global consciousness and create a digital version of it? The answer to this question is to be determined, and this is obviously just a theory for now, but when you really look deeply into what these people have realized, especially recently, they have realized that the most powerful force on the entire planet is the human mind. It is the global consciousness. That is why they're trying to mine us for data. That is exactly why they're using us to train AI. It is because they have realized that we are, and our minds are, in fact, the most powerful force in the world. We know this to be true just by simply looking around. Everything in society is designed and engineered to capture and hold our attention. It is designed to mine us for data. But what they have also realized is that they cannot effectively control us because there are too many people that are willing to push back. There are too many people that are not willing to go along with the current narratives. We are simply too unpredictable, and there are too many people that are willing to oppose them. And there are also too many regulations and rules to follow. There are moral obligations that these people have to abide by. So maybe these people have also realized that the only way that they can win this game, the only way they can have ultimate control over something and create this society that bends to their will and does everything that they say, is to create their own neural network and their own global consciousness and train it on us so that they can replicate us. But not replicate us as individuals, replicate our minds. And the more I think about this, and the more I listen to what these people that are developing these technologies are saying, the more this seems like it could be a possibility. Because they're basically telling us that AI is going to be used for mass surveillance, it's going to be used for data collection. They're going to know every single intimate detail about our lives, about what we like, about what we dislike, about our flaws, about our strengths, about our behaviors. They're going to know everything. And the reason they are collecting this data is so that they can use it to train AI.
The first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country.
So once this neural network is complete and all this digital infrastructure is in place, they're going to have a hive mind and a collective mind that is just as smart as us, that knows everything that we know, and does exactly what they say. And it does it at the drop of a hat. It pulls up the information and it knows things in real time, instantaneously. And when I say it knows everything we know, I don't mean as individuals. I mean it knows everything that we know collectively within a millisecond. So imagine how powerful that technology would be. Imagine what they could use that for and what they could do with it. And imagine at that point, what then happens to us? Where do we go? Do we become that person in that group of friends that gets pushed off to the wayside? Are we no longer a priority? Do we no longer matter? Do we just get brushed off and do other things become more important? I think these are all very important questions. But I think it's also fundamentally important that we don't fear this stuff. Because while all this stuff might sound very dystopian, and it might sound like we're just going to be pushed off to the wayside, and we're going to be left doing who knows what in a world full of robots and technology, it's important to remember that these people are trying to create what is already perfect. And I'm not saying that we as individuals are perfect, because we're certainly not. But I believe that we collectively, and the collective mind, was made perfect. It is exactly the way it was meant to be, and that is exactly the reason they're trying their best to replicate it. And it's also important to remember that AI and technology can only ever be as smart as we are. And not as smart as we are as individuals, but as smart as we are collectively, because we are the ones training AI. They are using our data and what they collect from us to train this technology. So knowing that, is it even possible that this technology could ever surpass the knowledge that we hold globally? Because when you think about what these people are doing, they're basically taking that global knowledge and they're condensing it down into a bunch of servers. But these servers have one flaw that can never be fixed, no matter how many of them they build. And that is the fact that they can never be human. They can never be us. And in my view, that means that this technology, no matter how advanced it gets, can never be the superior force. The most powerful force on the planet is, and will always be, human consciousness and the collective mind. But that is only true if we're united. So if there was ever a time throughout all of history for us to lay down our swords, quell the division, and come together, that moment would be right now.